Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first event in our winter seminar series created by the PDMI's Workshop Council. Today, it's Fearless Predictions for 2023. We welcome all of you to the event, PDMI members and non-members alike. If you're not a PDMI member but are attending today, we'd love to have you consider joining the association. There's no better way to support the mission of the PDMI than joining and sharing your voice in the direction of the industry. In the handouts tab of your control panel, you'll find our PDMI membership brochure. Download it, flip through it, and contact any of our team members should you desire more information. One more housekeeping note, the group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you do not have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the webinar. Today, the PDMI's Workshop Council welcomes a group of leaders from across all of our PDMI member councils as we look ahead at 2023. What's the buzz? How things play out in the linear streaming CTV wars remains of paramount importance to brands and their media buyers. At the same time, a possible economic recession, or are we already in one, hovers over the horizon like a storm cloud. New technology, new directions, what's next? These leaders are here today to share their visions of what the new year holds in store for performance marketers. Our moderator, Andrea Pass, owner of Andrea Pass Public Relations and chair of the PDMI Workshop Council, is here to direct the conversation. Andrea, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to see everyone joining us today. So forget the new normal. When are we going to get a year that any of us could describe as normal? Is it going to be anytime soon? Every day is something different. But we do know that 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here. So we're living in a world that will always include COVID. I don't know how that will ever change. The economic uncertainty primed by the worst inflation in more than 40 years is upon us. Today, consumers are primed to spend, but they're facing a wide range of challenges. So whatever issues consumers face, influence performance and direct-to-consumer marketers, we have answers. We have the directions and we have the predictions for what is going to happen or we think in our performance-driven marketing industry. Today, the PDMI Workshop Council hosts our annual Fearless Predictions webinar. So I'd like to first take a moment and just let you know who you're going to be hearing from today, and then we'll dive in after that. So our panel today, Chris Foster, Vice President of New Development for Modern Postcard and Chair of our Brand Response Council. Joseph Gray, the CEO of THOR Metrics and a member of the Workshop Council. Fern Lee, the CEO of THOR and the Chair of the new PDMI Women's Council. Douglas Plamp from Intelligent Handshake and a member of the Workshop Council. Patrick Raymond, CEO and President of Really Cool Ideas and a member of the Workshop Council, and Greg Silvano, CEO of Buyist and Chair of the PDMI E-Commerce Council. So our panel, they've been thinking about this. What are their predictions? The emails that have gone back and forth, I can tell you, these predictions were not easy to come upon. There is so much going on in the performance-driven marketing industry that we really have a lot to think about for the coming year. So we're going to hear their thoughts and have a dialogue. Please feel free to write your questions or comments in the chat and we'll be able to share that with you. So we're going to start off with Chris. You're kicking us off today. So I know AI is one of your thoughts. Share a little bit more. Chris, what are your fearless predictions?
Okay, I believe that AI will become more widely adopted in digital and direct-to-consumer and brand marketing this year. From ad placement algorithms to the actual creative and design of the ads themselves. So recently I read the New York Times article on ChatGPT. I'm sure most everybody had, but it showed examples of the AI writing a 4th grade essay, which was different than the 8th grade essay, which was different than the college essay. And in the prompts themselves, the 4th grade essay had typos, it had run-on sentences, it had words that were not quite right. One of them, for example, was tell the story of walking into a castle. And so it was a really interesting story. The kid met a dragon, they became friends, went home to tell his parents about it. fantastic. And they had a panel of 4th grade teachers and the children's book author Judy Bloom try to see if it was a chat or if it was a real essay. It was very intriguing to see the kinds of things that you could put in place as well. So the other thing besides the writing is also the illustration and the imagery. So if you go to a WALL-E 2, which is OpenAI, some of the illustrations are really crazy. So I saw one where it was a Shiba Inu making a prediction inside of a hamburger, comma, digital art. So there it is, Shiba Inu doing a tarot session inside a cheeseburger, digital art, incredible, right? And so the creativity that is available for just jump-starting ideas is pretty phenomenal. I also think AI will be able to launch hundreds of creative variants to test and placement and engagement learnings to find the right time, the right media channel, the placement and the audience to optimize the marketing. I think that the variant creation from AI is going to be helpful to marketers where they can have a couple of tests, a couple of ideas, run through AI to generate 20, 30, 40, 50 kinds of tests to really optimize and see what the performance is from those specific digital marketing assets. So
that's, and it's very interesting that you bring up ChatGPT, because I'm the public relations world, and we're finding that journalists are using this method. Now, of course, these are not professional journalists, but our world is filled with homegrown journalists. And will they need the PR person anymore? Because they're not going to need quotes from our clients because they'll be doing a ChatGPT article. And so it's really a debate in our industry, because people are also using it to write press releases and not speak to their clients and get direct quotes from clients. So it's very interesting, this whole AI approach. So I'm sure we're going to talk more about this as we get into our further discussion today on Fearless Predictions. So we're going to move over to Joseph first. Joseph, welcome back from your trip. I loved seeing all of your pictures. You seem to have a great time.
Oh, I've been posting on Facebook, obviously.
Yeah, yes, you have. And it's wonderful.
Hey, Chris, you'll get a kick out of this. So I was using ChatGPT to optimize routes to reduce my foot traffic as I went around, Paris and London. And oh my gosh, family and I walked miles and miles and trying to hit all the sites. So yeah, a little use of ChatGPT. That was an application that was well suited for. I don't know if it'll be writing DR ads anytime soon, but anything that's laborious, that's formulaic, certainly that's a great application for that type of technology. I don't know if this is a fearless prediction.
Media availability. I know you really want to talk about DR media availability. I know that was part of your predictions. Tell us a little bit more of your thoughts.
Last year was a tough year for DR, certainly coming off of a glorious time during COVID, at least for the DR economics. We had, HUT levels, households using television at historic highs and media rates at historic lows, and that formula worked really, really well for DR. It was really exciting to see how DR advertisers were able to measure that in real time as well as consumer sentiment. So we knew that consumers were responding. We knew the rates and all of these things could be measured in real time. And, as an industry, we really took advantage of that opportunity. We were much more agile and quick in making media decisions than our brand counterparts that, frankly, they didn't know which way was up or down. And I think Nielsen had some issues. Of course, it was well publicized. Just trying to understand, what were the viewership levels. And again, that's exciting from a DR perspective. We measure that response day in and day out. So, we're not relying on some antiquated methodology to tell us that there's audience there. We measure it, which is exciting. Certainly brand at some point has to jump back in and spend those media dollars. And we started to see that really happening in 2022, and it's been a tough year for DR, but I started seeing some signs of softening as we got into the latter part of 2022, and I think that trend's continuing. In fact, when I speak to my iSpot colleagues who work with all these major brands, they were not seeing any kind of a step back in 2022. But by the end of the year, you started to hear inklings of, yeah, some of the brands are starting to pull back, and that's becoming kind of a common theme, economic concerns, et cetera. So I think coming into 2023, the pendulum, if you will, is swinging a little bit toward DR in terms of availability of media. Consumer sentiment, that's a whole nother conversation. We'll have to see what happens with consumer sentiment and whether DR advertisers are getting good response rates and conversions, but at least the media side is looking promising.
That is certainly good to hear. Thank you so much, Joseph. I'd like to turn over to Fern Lee. And Fern, I know you have some predictions and they pertain to linear. What can you tell us about that?
Well, as you know, that we specialize in the 50+ marketplace. We're doing a lot of work with Boston brands and a lot of major brands from Humana, the Aetna, the Anthems of the world, Medicare Advantage. So one of our predictions, and because I knew everyone was going to go AI, I kind of knew what everyone their feel, so I wanted to take a different step and make it a little more interesting for our listeners to lean in. So something that's going to become very relevant, and people are going to go, well, it's been relevant for a while, but I'm going to open the funnel a little, is that product placement, while it's been very, very important, especially for brand orientation, you look at Cantor, the numbers are 75% of product placement from brands are in linear TV. So how does that open, and why are we predicting that it's just going to be blown out for 2023? More and more of the older market is really looking at taking this and taking to the next step. And what's the next step? It's integrations. It's looking at the NBCUs, the CBSs, the ABC, and saying, what can we do with the Dr. Phils of the world, the Sherry Shepherds, the Tamron Halls, Steve Wilkos, Newsmax, GMA3, Rachel Ray, Drew Barrymore, just to name a few. And what we're doing is we're educating the consumer. We're looking for differentiators. What differentiates a brand from another brand? Everyone out there is doing Medicare. Q4 blows the doors off for Medicare Advantage. Well, what can we do that we play in a different realm, but yet keep linear TV? So we're doing integrations. We bring on an agent. We play off the host, whether it's a Dr. Phil or a Sherry or whoever, and we literally educate. We're not trying to sell it in. We literally have a gigantic 800 number up there, and we want them to call an agent. So we have an agent playing off of which is the talent, plays off the host, and they go back and forth, and then we do a 60-second lead out. The numbers are through the roof. So it's been fantastic. It's been a new funnel. The key is, though, being authentic. If you're not authentic, you can't take advantage. The eyeball penetration, purchasing power has just been exponentially stronger and stronger for ROI. So again, authenticity is a must. And moving forward, the opportunity for content creation is going to be, again, just growing and growing and growing. So, and it obviously will push to social media, online sales, call centers, etc. So we just feel it's going to become more relevant in 2023.
And I know one of the things that you brought up, and I'm hearing this across the board, is storytelling, and that you're bringing up authenticity. But I think one of the things that you've mentioned in the past is how important a story is, because the audience wants to know that story. They want to feel part of it.
Absolutely, lean in. You have to. It's like, in the old days, joke used to be, it worked for me, it'll work for you. It's the same kind of thing, but we weave a story throughout, and I have to tell you, even the hosts, like Sherry Shepard's brand new to market. She used to be on The View. She sat in for Wendy Williams for a couple of years when he was having some challenges. They love this because it's health and wellness, and they all have aging and parents, and they're all literally, when we stop taping, they're asking us 5 million questions. Can you help us? Like, we're smart people, and we just don't have the answers. So it's really education.
And that's certainly a prediction that I think is going to come true in 2023. So thank you, Fern. I'd like to welcome Marcelino Miyares to our call. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to introduce him at the beginning, but Marcelino is the Managing Director of D2H Partners and the Chair of the PDMI Hispanic Council. So Marcelino, it's good to see you today. I'm going to jump right into your predictions, because I believe you have some tips on how performance-driven marketing will be succeeding in the Spanish language media. So tell us about that.
Am I unmuted?
Nope, you are. Go right ahead.
So, our industry, just picking up on some of the stuff that Fern was talking about, I think linear TV still has a lot of room for growth in the Hispanic market, which is the practice area that we specialize in. But it's only going to happen with certain conditions. And the main one is that if our allowables from our clients don't increase, Spanish language media is going to be stagnant. There aren't any new networks. We're seeing that the digital arena is growing a lot, but at 6-7x times the CPMs. In fact, one of my predictions is that digital is probably going to overtake linear TV in Spanish because of pharma and the brand players, et cetera, who can afford higher allowables. But in Spanish, there's already one network, for example, Estrella TV, where digital has already overtaken their linear, and they've been a powerhouse in getting more than their fair share of media dollars for many years, and digital has now taken over. So I think that's a trend line that's happening, but we run the risk of being priced out. And this is where the fearless prediction is if we don't find more transparency in digital results attributable to Spanish TV, the Spanish market is not going to be able to grow. The Hispanic market's not going to be able to grow. For a year and a half now, we've been talking at the PDMI shows about what we're seeing in terms of digital attribution from Spanish TV to English language landing pages and English language sites, and ultimately English language conversion. And a lot more needs to be done to give credit where credit is due. And that's what I'm referring to as transparency. And clients really have to commit to wanting to know the truth. And there are ways of doing this now in a very objective way. There are third-party, I don't know what they're called, vaults or something, where clients can send their data and a third-party data analyst can come in and make that attribution. We're doing it, with one of those. We work with a company called Result. But without that digital attribution, our allowables can't go up. And we're working with allowables that were assigned the day we opened 8 years ago. We just turned 8, by the way, so kudos to us. But we're working with the same allowables that we were working on 8 years ago. And media, linear media has grown, has increased in expense significantly more. So I think that's a challenge. And marketers that want to see success in the Hispanic market have to change the way that they're attributing their digital traffic. They have to, conversions on inbound conversions have improved. Media's improving as best as it can, but really the clients that succeed are the ones that make those concessions in the allowables. Otherwise, we're in for some very strong headwinds, recession or not. The Hispanic market per se is in for some strong headwinds.
Great. Well, thank you for your insights. I'm going to move over to Doug Plank, who's the newest member of the Workshop Council. So we are thrilled to have you in the council. And I know one of your thoughts are all about QR codes being everywhere and how they're increasing conversion rates. So tell us a little bit about your fearless predictions for 2023.
Well, before I jump into that, I want to mention, curious if everyone saw that Amazon is going to start to let go over 18,000 employees starting tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I think that's an indication of really what's going to be happening with a continuation of this recession, but it's also an indication that they did extraordinary hiring during COVID, right? Because of the demand and the increase in DR. So I don't think it's all bad for us. I think the economy could start to go down, but I think from a DR standpoint, it's going to create extraordinarily new opportunities. The reason I'm excited about QR and AI and all that is that, frankly, if you look at our industry, I don't think since IVR have we had any really significant, clearly across the sector technology that's come out. And again, that's just my opinion. That's had a significant impact. And so it's rich in opportunity for AI. The QR codes are significant. One of my previous businesses, I was one of the developers of the ability to make a donation through a mobile device. And we started out with texting, and then we ended up with QR codes too. So QR codes are extraordinary. You're starting to see them even on TV shows. I was watching the NFL games this weekend, and you saw QR codes coming up quite a bit. But for me, the question is, how are we going to utilize AR? Are you going to use it in big data from the standpoint of looking backwards, historically, at what a consumer has done, what they've purchased, the things they care about, where they live, their economic status, and so forth? Or is it also going to be able to be used in a predictive way for what your tendencies tend to be as a consumer? At our company, and I don't mean for this to be an ad for Intelligent Handshake, but realistically, towards the end of this past year, we started to see with our technology and our clients an increase in average of 25% conversion rates by utilizing our AI. I'm not going to give the secrets of our AI right now, but I know Joseph got a briefing from one of my colleagues recently about that. And so I think it's a matter of how AI is going to be utilized and to what extent does it start to bunch up against some of this privacy issue that we're all concerned with. You start to look at cookies and you look at what Google is saying about that, and they were going to convert to their new system, the privacy sandbox or sandbox privacy. I see it mentioned both ways. Was extended to 2023, and now I hear that it's going to be 2024. And so there's going to be some significant changes, but I really believe that it's a rich opportunity for all of us to start to integrate AI and big data and predictive analytics and these kinds of things to start to make a difference. And again, my evidence of that is what we're seeing with our clients right now, with an average of 25% in conversion rates and revenue. We've seen as high as a 56% increase. So AI is going to be here to stay.
And it certainly, again, seems positive for the coming year and beyond and beyond. So thank you very much, Doug. We appreciate that. And I know Patrick has been very, very, very busy, so it's wonderful to see you here. So creative, what's happening? What are some thoughts for 2023?
Oh, 1 second, because I just took a bunch of notes because being towards the end, it's like, of course, everybody says what your predictions are.
But it's almost good that we have duplicate predictions, so we're all on that path.
That's okay. Certainly my predictions. I am no expert in these particular fields. As a creative, I'm always putting my 2 cents in, whether they're warranted or not. I can see Fern rolling her eyes at me.
No, I'm smiling. You're one of the most brilliant men I know.
No, I love you, Fern. The last couple of years with connected TV, kind of experimenting in the space with different clients, I really see this as the year that connected TV advertising is really going to take a greater hold in our industry. I think advertisers, marketers, content creators, I think we're all beginning to get a better grasp of its attribution, how to best spend in the required formats, which was to my point, Fern, like whether my clients want to hear what I have to say or not, I'm always pushing for, let's try this, a little bit of creative in a different way. But as I think we all start to understand how to work in the different formats with the creative, I think the signs that the streaming platforms with the ad supported tiers, they're expanding across, Hulu, Netflix, they're all increasing on those tiered supported platforms. So I think we're going to really see a shift in that world. I also think that the programmatic side of that is where we as an industry can really benefit from, because we can actually really focus where we want our creative to be, what we want it to be. So I'm excited about that as a creative. I've been excited to see certain bits work, and I'm like, oh wow, I really get this. But I've also learned a lot from mistakes too. So I'm really hopeful for our industry in that way this year. My second prediction, along with coming out of, COVID and what will likely be probably a dip into a little bit of a recession this year in the short term, I see there's going to be a huge need for more aggressive direct-to-consumer content that speaks direct to people with solutions and services that make them look and feel better, but also speaks to the pocketbook. But I do think that we're going to see more what is seen as novelty products. Maybe in the past, where during economic downturns they did well, I don't think they're going to fare as well this time around, because I think people are more savvy, they're more conscious, they're looking for good products, but for a good value. And I think we're gonna have a real opportunity this year as an industry to leverage that this particular time period. That's it for me.
Great, thank you so much, Patrick. And coming up in the rear is Greg. So Greg, thank you for being so patient. I know you have thoughts on this new normal. So tell us a little bit about your predictions.
Yeah, I'm gonna swing for the fences. So I have 3 predictions. First is kind of obvious. 2023 is yet another new normal, and I think nobody can look back over the past 5 years and say, it's going to be a variation of this particular year. We had pre-COVID, we had COVID with quarantine, then we had global supply chain problems, then we had a post-COVID kind of shakeout, then we had inflation. I mean, worst inflation in 40 years. Nobody, there's no comparison, year for that. Then at the end of this year, we had bad retail. Right, too much inventory in retail. So now 2023, we're definitely at least heading into a recession. So I think we can't look at 2023 and say it's going to be kind of like this other year. It's another new normal. It doesn't mean it's going to be a long-term normal, but it's going to be different. And I think I don't think anybody actually knows how this year will play out. And I think if anybody predicted at the beginning of 2021 or 2022, they would have been wrong. So I think we need to be just respectful of the fact that it's still kind of chaotic out there. So that's number one, is that it is another new normal that has no comparable yet. Number 2, I think there's going to be a resurgence in TV advertising. I think, so it's funny. So yeah, I'm a digital guy, right? We're an e-commerce platform and integrated with TikTok and Bing, and I'm wildly impressed by TikTok's crazy rise over the years, over the last few years. So I have a deep respect for technology and even the big platforms. But the reality is, when you're dealing with CCPA, you're dealing with cookieless browsers coming, you're dealing with the privacy restrictions in iOS that came out. It's hard. Digital marketing is hard to show return now, and it's when you can't quite. It's not, it used to be a shiny object. Is, hey, let's do everything digital, and we can digital marketing, and we can target our audiences, and we can track them around the internet and hound them, and you can't really do that anymore. So now, if you get a lot of money to spend, do you put it all there, or how much do you put in TV? And I think TV, I've been in this industry since 2011, right? So we're going on 12, 13 years. I've been hearing about the death of TV since the day I got in this industry, and still the biggest campaigns on our platform are TV driven, and I think it's only going to improve this year. So that's my second prediction. And third one, I'm telling you, man, going back to the whole, there's always a shiny object, right? Every time I go to PDMI East or West, there's somebody hawking some sort of shiny object that, oh my God, it's going to put people out of business. It's going to change everything. They never pan out, never once, right? This is the real deal. And mark my words, 2023 is the start of Google's downward spiral to be the next Yellow Pages. And it is because of AI. Okay, hear me out.
I agree. That's great.
Why do you go to Google?
I think a lot of people are saying, yeah, we agree.
I'm telling you, you go to Google to get an answer. And I have been saying the whole time, the thing that's going to finally beat Google, and I never would have thought it, like last year, never would have thought it. But I've always said the thing that's going to beat Google is not a better search engine. It's going to be an answer engine, something that just answers your question and knows you. What is the right software as a service valuation? Well, what kind of company do you have, right? And you can have that conversation. It gives you an answer. Google just indexes It indexes the internet and returns a bunch of pages that it thinks might answer your question. So while we were on this webinar, I went up to ChatGPT and I said, here it is right here, write a haiku about a webinar where Chris went first. Chris leads the way. Webinar starts with a bang. Learn and grow with ease. And then all I said back was, Joe went second. That's all I said. It said, Joe follows Chris, sharing wisdom, insights gained, webinar flows on. That's impressive stuff.
Well, not only that, that's exactly what happened. Joe was fantastic and the webinar flowed on. It was brilliant. It predicted. You know, and to your point, Greg, there's a New York Times article on December 21, and the headline of the article was, quote, a new chatbot is a code red for Google's search business.
Yeah.
So a new wave of chatbots use artificial intelligence that could reinvent or even replace the traditional internet search engine.
It's going to kill Google, and here's why. Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI. They're about to invest $10 billion into OpenAI. It's already in many of their products. If you're in GitHub, it'll actually write code for you. And they're talking about moving it into Bing this year. I'm telling you. So if I have a choice between getting an answer quickly or having to go to Google and scroll through a bunch of search results that are sponsored, some spammy garbage that people are just putting out there trying to get higher on the organic listings, I'm going to ChatGPT every single time. No question.
It certainly is the future, and the future is certainly here. You know, so some of the things that we were talking about today, and I want to ask some sort of open-ended questions, so someone just choose to chime in. But, you know, we're seeing new brands. We're seeing smaller D2C brands coming into performance-driven marketing. You know, what are some examples of these brands, and what are some predictions of what's going to happen and how they're going to be using performance-driven marketing? You know, so I know, Chris, you had some thoughts about smaller brands.
I did. My second prediction, didn't know what time allowed, was that smaller DTC brands will capture more share than before. We know that, you know, Amazon's got the lion's share of that, and a lot of smaller brands compete for what's left over. However, as targeting gets better and brands connect more closely with their ideal audiences, you know, to Fern and Andrea's point about storytelling, the brands that tell the right stories that connect with their audience in the most authentic way capture that audience attention. Even if it's a small audience, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a big brand to be a great brand. Great brands connect with their audiences. So I do believe that these consumers will gravitate to their own personal love marks that define who they are, especially Gen Z. They push this trend further because they want relationships with their brands. Exactly. What does that mean? I think it means slower sales for standalone retailers like Old Navy, Gap, et cetera, and possibly and hopefully more action for niche e-commerce sites and niche brands. One of my favorite brands, although I don't use it, one of my favorite brands is a brand called Coco Kind. Don't know if you folks are familiar with Coco Kind. Check it out, cocokind.com. She's awesome, the woman who created it. It's a very small skincare line, completely all natural, completely small batch, completely affordable, and all the models are actually Coco Kind customers. And they're usually pre-makeup, they're just looking like normal folks, freckles and acne, just like everybody has. And that's all their advertisements are their own customers. To me, that is a brilliant brand. And these are the brands that can compete with L'Oreal and Nivea and the like, because they're able to craft an audience that believes in what they believe in. So anyway, that's what I think the e-commerce will help with that. And to Greg's point, I think AI is going to help those smaller brands generate a crap ton of content online.
And actually, Patrick, talking about this topic of smaller brands and this authenticity of knowing the owner, knowing the user, are you finding that's really working in creative with that personal storytelling that Fern was discussing before?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, we're just, as it used to be, we'd plan, shoots months and months in advance. Not that we still don't ever, do that every now and then, but it's pretty much a constant funnel of shooting because we have to be nimble, and we're reacting to AI to a degree because we're getting feedback instantaneously to results, and then we can kind of navigate where we need to make adjustments and what funnel of what we're doing. So it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to try this out here and do something here. And I mean, that's how you get success these days, is you have to really be kind of like testing different things out in different ways. But I think back to the TV thing, I do agree that I think linear TV is going to see some success this year too. But you know, with the programmatic side, it's amazing because you do get that instantaneous feedback where you are actually almost interacting with users in a way, a certain selected audience that you want to be targeting, and you can kind of make adjustments and, you know, craft messaging and offers that people are responding to, and make little adjustments, and then wow, oh, that made a big difference. And then you can then try that out in your different funnels and see what works and what doesn't. But I think going back to the programmatic thing, I think that's going to help dictate on the creative side a lot of what we do moving forward in some ways. But to Chris's point, you know, when it comes to, you know, users and where we see that kind of content, authentic users, I mean, there's just nothing better than that. When you find just the right people that you can, you know, be true influencers, they're sometimes our best creative for sure. So, you know, I think it's kind of a mix of everything, right?
I think
and certainly when we're talking about influencers and some of the names that Fern mentioned, Sherry Shepherd and Drew Barrymore, and these are of a certain generation. And obviously the influencers and the TikTokers that are really, really popular are way younger. And they're not on traditional.
Andrea, I'm jumping in because I disagree now. You're going to start seeing an older audience where before you'd never see 50 plus influencers. There's a great article again in the New York Times about what's going on in China with a group of older women 65 plus and what they're doing to open the funnel. And you're going to start seeing that. Life Alert, one of the first companies to jump on the 65 plus influencer market. You're going to see that more and more in the insurance world. It's about personalization. It's just what Patrick said. But remember, it's what's old is really new again. One of the first ever infomercials to take personalization to the next level was Oric. Their first infomercial out was without Mr. Oric, okay, meaning the CEO, and it failed miserably. The minute they put this man in with a hooked nose who could barely speak to the camera, it resonated so well with the consumer to lean in. And you're going to see that more and more getting involved and making sure that content is really personalized, because the more personalized it is, the more authentic it's going to be, the more analytics are going to play into it, and the more you're going to play off each other. I cut out articles to read on the weekends. Well, you know, clipping from online. They're knowing that. So now I'm not getting served anymore Monday to Friday. I'm getting served Saturday and Sunday because they see that I go back in on the weekend. I'm taking a trip to Turkey and I want to be in a hotel. All of a sudden, I'm getting all of these offers to do all kinds of activities, not from the hotel, but from others within the Turkish Empire. You know, so it's really going to be personal.
And what's interesting is we're also talking about all of these new streaming services. And I know one of the things that Marcelino had mentioned when we were emailing back and forth is examples of things that were previously mainstream streamers and now joining the Spanish language category. You know, so Marcelino, if you could just expand about that, and what are some of these mainstream streamers who now are joining that Spanish language category?
Sure. I think what's happening is that some of the big 7 or 8 streamers are realizing two things: that a lot of their users are working with Spanish language browsers. It's still a minority of the total Hispanic streaming, but it's reached a critical mass. Roku, who we work with, for example, has almost 2 million Latino viewers on Spanish language browsers. So those are people who are definitely going to be looking for Spanish language content. And then on top of that, there's another category of Spanish interest, right? So those are the Hispanics who are on their English language browsers, but who live in a multi-generational household or are still first or second generation. So they like Spanish, understand Spanish language content, and look for meaningful, authentic content in their culture. And that's 2 or 3x that Spanish browser audience. So they're all sort of simultaneously realizing this at the same time. So Roku entered the marketplace last year. Paramount is entering it. Peacock has had a lot of content because of Telemundo. They're now packaging it in full episode players, and there are others off of it. I'm a little bit in the COVID fog, so I don't remember all the players, but of the 7 or 8, 6 or 7 are already figuring out how to start targeting Latinos, and they're doing that by packaging destinations. In the case of Roku, they packaged something called Espacio Latino, the Latin space. And they're all doing something similar. They're making it easier to navigate if you're a Spanish language viewer looking for content in your language. It doesn't, and there's some redundancies involved, right? Because you can go to Espacio Latino and still find the content if you did a search elsewhere, but they're really working hard to facilitate and then do the outreach to their bases via social and email and other things, on platform advertising, to make sure that their audiences know that this content is there. And just to give you a sense, Roku, since they launched Espacio Latino in June of last year, already they had a large critical mass. I can't get into numbers. They had a large critical mass. It's in the millions of identified Latino viewers. They've doubled that in 6 months, just by doing pretty simple stuff. Not even doing off-platform outreach, right? So this model is something I think that's going to be replicated across the board, because ultimately linear TV has limited inventory. Non-linear TV has unlimited inventory. It's limited only by content. So the more content they have and package and find and package, the more this audience is going to pay out for them.
Right. And Joseph, I think you probably could add into this with these streaming services and with metrics and getting these analytics in that quick turnaround. What are we seeing for the future?
Well, you know, iSpy has been doing some very interesting things with connected television, including the work with Group M and measuring how many of these TVs are really turned on. So you're paying for eyeballs that in reality don't exist. So there's just a lot of really interesting things that are happening in terms of, you know, attribution and measurement and trying to get our arms around all these new technology mediums. But I think it surprised everyone when this study was done last year and they came out, and it's published so everyone can look it up, the number of CTV impressions that were from essentially TVs that weren't turned on.
And of course, then these analytics shouldn't be part of any reporting. But
yeah, and this is all evolving in real time, so it's kind of an exciting time to be in the industry to see all these things taking place.
Well, I think we've hit on so many amazing points today about our future, and I'm not sure if there are any questions that have been written in. Tom would have that information, so if there are any questions, Tom, if you could let us know that.
Lots of good questions. Lots and lots of good questions. Say tribute to the quality of the conversation. Although it's going to be hard to beat Google as the next Yellow Pages as like a solo line from the entire event.
Well, I can cross Google off the list of companies to acquire Buyist.
Yeah, that prompted a question from the audience. It did prompt a question from the audience that depending on the demo or the product, does it not make sense still to that even though Yellow Pages is old school, to expose a national author with a PI or pay-per-call price model in every YP print directory in the United States with one tracking number? For example, Life Alert is having great success doing just that in 50 million print directories. Thoughts on old school print from anyone out there and its effectiveness for certain things? Fern. So, and then I think we should go to Chris because he's actually working at a print company.
Absolutely. We're doing more print though, you know, literally from retargeting print to things like you're saying the Yellow Pages. We do both print, hard copy, but we're also doing, you know, digital. So we're mixing and matching all of it. Well, I'll throw it over to Chris, but he will tell you postcarding is the way to be. It's getting the attention. People are so excited to go to that mailbox again, and they're like, "What is this?" And you're doing oversized hard stock. You know, Chris, go take it away and tell us some of the things you're doing.
I'm giving you a kiss from across the country, Fern, so thank you. So Modern Postcard specializes in direct mail, integrated direct marketing, and like Fern said, part of that is direct mail retargeting, where we retarget website visitors. But beyond that, I think to Fern's point and what some other folks have talked about with the saturation of the digital space, we receive, and to put it in layman's terms, we receive a couple hundred emails a day, right? We see over 10,000 different digital ads throughout the day or the days. You get a dozen direct mail pieces at your home, right? Some of them, bills now are often online. And so the competition for attention is just less in direct mail. It's crazy. So we've been seeing our response rates through the roof the last several years. As digital starts to be a little bit too much, what the direct mail does is it creates that incentive to act, right? And especially now, to Douglas's point about QR codes, it's easy as pie to have a QR code on a direct mail piece that goes right to a website. So the site can be that action vehicle. The direct mail piece is what creates the awareness and the interest, right? And so it's been fascinating. And, you know, we've connected with a couple of folks here at the PDMI with direct mail programs that are acquisition and retention and retargeting. So I think that, you know, Joseph, you talked earlier about the pendulum swinging. Pendulums of all kinds are always swinging, right? And I think that, you know, the pendulum of digital to kind of offline to kind of this integrated mix, I think will probably settle into a place where all channels are available for most brands if the AOV is right and the customer lifetime value is right, but it's the integration and the mixing of the channels that ends up driving the highest response.
Makes sense. Thanks, guys. One for Greg. In this era of annual new normals, is there something your company has done consistently to be able to ride through these changes, or anything you've seen from a client or other business, you know, that's impressed you as we've done this?
For us personally, it's funny. One of my favorite quotes, I'm pretty sure it's Jeff Bezos. He said, a lot of people think, might have been Bill Gates. He said, a lot of people look at what's going to be different in the next 10 years, and I think about what's going to be the same in the next 10 years. And I definitely have consciously taken that attitude, certainly with Buyist, where, you know, at the end of the day, I've been told that we're going to be put out of business by Amazon and Shopify and, you know, every other thing that comes up. The reality is, at the end of the day, and even AI, actually TikTok ads, right? And TikTok, Instagram shopping on Instagram and Google Shopping. Oh my God, everybody's going to use that because it's so easy. The reality is, what hasn't changed is that people are going to have products to sell, and they need to get that product in front of somebody, and they need to capture that transaction as efficiently as possible, right? To have a return on their ad spend. They're going to need tools to do that as easily as possible. And that is what we've personally just continued to focus on, is that we don't over invest in shiny objects, chasing things, integrations with this, integrations with that. I'll tell you, the one that has stuck, and it makes sense. I also think there's going to be an implosion this year on that, but that's a fourth prediction. I don't have time for it. Is buy now, pay later programs. That actually came about and stuck, and it's real, right? It used to be you had debt, you had to take on debt in order to have multi-pay. If you wanted 3 payments of $50, you had to float $100 of that, over 30 days and 60 days. And buy now, pay later comes along and like, hey, we'll give this marketer all your money the next day, and then we'll float that debt. But that's really the only real shiny object that we had to make a lot of adjustments for. At the end of the day, people have to sell things. It's going to be online, right? That's not going away. I think that's it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Greg. This one came in from maybe from someone who was attending our Take 20 last week about the convergence of media and TV hardware, and talking about shoppable TV. It's open to anyone. Does anyone have thoughts on the growth and development of shoppable TV in the next year?
In the next year, almost nothing. Maybe in the years to come, right? I think it's just there's so much infrastructure is the wrong word, but there's so much debt, right? Just stuff that exists today to get the job done that's already part of our economy and part of the companies that have invested in things, and that doesn't go away like that, right? I think when new things come about that are convenient to users and actually solves their problem, then it sticks around. But it doesn't take over things instantly. So if it's a valid idea and it works on both sides, works for the consumers and it works for the marketers, and everybody wins, it'll stick around. But it's not something that suddenly takes over the world within a year.
Now, I think QR codes and the internet are essentially disrupting, the need for, interactive television in a sense. We have it, and it's pretty elegant.
And it reuses all the current players, which is
exactly,
it's important. It's just one of those things.
Great. This one's from Marce. Marce, given what you were saying, how realistic do you think a transition to completely transparent media results is in the next 12 to 24 months?
That's a tough one because it's not on us, right? If it were up to the agencies, we would demand that transparency with as much fervor as we can. It's really up to the clients. We've been averaging kind of one client a year, accepting the premise, which is a pretty slow pace. But I think it's simple. Univision has made a huge investment in proving that there is a lot more Spanish language audience than all of the traditional measurement services have given credit for. And in fact, they've found that the under delivery of historical measurement is probably in the 35 to 40% range. And they've hired a team to begin to help agencies and clients figure out how they can justify their rates, which are increasing despite diminishing linear audiences. So they're vested, and I think, and then on the opposite side, Telemundo as well. But Univision is sort of, I think, the tip of the spear, and they have direct relationships with a lot of clients, a lot of brands. So they may be an amplifier of this message or not. But I think it's going to happen slowly, but I think it will happen for those clients that recognize that, there's 65 million Latinos out there. Half of them at least speak Spanish and use Spanish language television. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's bigger than most countries on the planet. So those that are committed, those that are patient, I think are going to force the issue. There are costs, because to the extent that you give more attribution to Spanish now than you've been giving it in the past, it's a zero-sum game, right? So ultimately, things that have been attributable before are now less attributable. But when you look at what's happening to English language traffic, the way it spikes, when you look at Amazon, when you look at other big box sort of e-commerce platforms, you realize that the market is growing because it's a very large market watching very few channels. There's 60 plus total channels, including cable, but really only 3 viable networks. There's a lot of audience concentration there, so it will spike when you buy media correctly. It's just clients have to make some decisions about how they want to attribute and where they want to put credit, and that's more up to them than us. All we can do is evangelize as much as possible and ride Univision and Telemundo's cause on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll cut time for maybe a couple more. This one kind of directed towards Patrick and Fern. Campaigns that you worked on that have had particular success on streaming or CTV, have you seen those? And if so, what was the key to making them work in that particular environment?
So I'll jump in. Okay.
You go ahead, Fern.
Patrick, you and I work together. It's really about, when you talk performance marketing, I think that we're still not there for the normal 60 and 120 DR player. We're just not. It's more of a brand response play. The client that can do 10 and 15s and, once in a while throw 30s into the mix. So I think that the amount of time that you're on air and getting the messaging across is very different in those two worlds. We'll start opening up maybe to 30, 60s. We played a little in the older market. We did some testing this year in the insurance world. Got some decent results, but again, we can't tell the story. We can't tell all the benefits that we need because we're not selling a hard good product. We're selling almost a two-step, and we're trying to get the person to be educated. And so that's some of our challenges. Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think what I am seeing with certain clients is, I think as this year progresses, I mean, I think there's an opportunity in programmatic to actually tell a story with multiple creatives for the brand. And if you're serving it up to a certain, demographic, I think there's a real opportunity there. That's what I'm excited about with connected TV. But it's a big play, and it's a lot to figure out. So, but we have been figuring that out with certain clients on how to actually do that and do it the right way. And I think that is the brave new world, and on that side of things. But it's going back to the old days in some ways, but it's just much faster. So yeah.
Great.
Patrick, it's interesting. You got me thinking about that with a brand like Grammarly, where they have those 15-second pre-rolls on YouTube, but they have a variety of creative, right? Telling different parts of the story and different use cases for Grammarly.
Yep, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. One to close it out for everyone or anyone who wants to raise a hand. There are so many companies that touch a campaign to bring a product or service from concept to consumer. Along this chain from, I guess we're saying from creative at the start to customer service at the end, are there any red flags that we need to watch for in 2023? Conversely, any stars or possible future stars along the chain we should try to hitch our wagons to?
It's interesting. You just said something interesting. You said to the end of customer service. I don't know how anyone else feels, but I don't believe customer service is the end. I think it's a journey from day one and the initial creative and touching the consumer who has questions over and over again and convincing them to open the funnel on what they really need and being able to provide for them everything they need. Go ahead, Greg.
Oh no, I'm not cutting you off. Just I'll go next. I think the problems with fulfillment and shipping are largely done. So I think that is no longer a red flag, and it used to be a red flag, the supply chain. I do have a red flag for you. I think a red flag is if you have a digital marketing team that is not up to date and that they are doing things as if it's 2019, pre-iOS changes, pre-CCPA changes, that they're not actually looking at multi-touch, attribution, and they're just kind of, hey, this is what Facebook says, so Facebook must be right. I think that is a huge red flag now. I think that whole industry has had to grow up real quick.
Interesting. Anyone else want to roll the dice here?
I'll sort of chime in on something because my world is very, very different. Although I represent clients in performance-driven marketing for public relations, obviously I kind of have a wider net. And I think the red flag for my industry is pay for play. You have homegrown journalists that want you to pay them a lot of money to include your product, service, book, whatever, business in their article that doesn't have the return on investment. It doesn't have the listenership, the viewership, the readership. So be careful about things that are previously known as editorial that have turned into advertorial or pay to play without checking the analytics and seeing if indeed these media outlets actually have engagement, because many of them claim to, but don't. And so my world has changed so much in that the homegrown journalists have almost taken over, so to speak, and it's important that you're aware of what you're spending money on and what should be earned media coverage, because obviously in my world, earned media coverage is quality media coverage. So a little 2 cents from the PR world.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're just about out of time here. Really appreciate everyone and the attendees for sticking it out with us and enjoying this hour. Most importantly, all of our speakers for taking the time to join us and share their wisdom. Andrea, wonderful job as the moderator, as always. Thank you for wrangling this group. It's a big screen of big personalities, so we appreciate it. I think the entire workshop council for bringing us the event. If you're a PDMI member and would like to get involved in a council, you can reach out to me directly to share your interest. To join the workshop or any of our other 5 councils today. Your next opportunity to attend a live event online from the PDMI is next week's Take 20, our bi-monthly 20-minute webinar series created by the Brand Response Council. That event is set for Wednesday, January 25th at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and is the first of a 2-episode series on data automation. To register for the webinar, please visit thepdmi.com/take-20. Also, registration and hotel reservations are open now for PDMI East, our next in-person event, slated for March 20th through 22nd at Eden Rock, Miami Beach. 4 networking events and 10 educational sessions highlight the schedule of this spring's can't miss performance marketing event. Don't miss out. Visit thepdmi.com/pdmi-east for more information and to register today. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today. Thanks again to our panel. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.